Wandia watched her son Daniel. She frequently watched him for many reasons. He was a beautiful child, chubby with fine skin and a happy face. But on closer inspection, it could be seen that his eyes set rather far apart, slanted upwards and outwards. Compared to his twin sister Lisa, he was rather short, and at the age of 4, he still drooled a little. Daniel had Down syndrome, and 5 years later, Wandia still remembered the shock, the pain, the sheer disbelief she had experienced when she held her infant son in her arms for the first time. Aoro had tried to tell her, had promised the obstetrician that he could handle it, but words had failed him. The pain and the denial had been too great. The sense of failure was overwhelming, for he had failed, at least in his eyes. He should have been able to give her a perfect first child, and he had not. The fact that Daniel had a completely perfect twin just made the contrast too glaring. She was only 28. Statistically, this was a problem that should occur in elderly mothers. It was confounded bad luck. But one could not help but love Daniel. He was the happiest fellow alive. So he was slow, made more obvious by the speed of his sister's growth. Daniel simply copied whatever she did, slowly mastered it, and good-naturedly went on to something else. Lisa made it her business to ensure Daniel's safety and well-being. When she was first taken to kindergarten, she threw such a tantrum that Daniel, who could barely talk and was only partially potty trained, had to be brought along. In a way, history was repeating itself. Wandia and Aoro had also adopted Becky's 2 children, Alicia and Johnny, after Becky's death 2 years before. Becky had developed full-blown AIDS, and at her death, she had become a mere grotesque shadow of her former self. The lovely eyes were dimmed. The beautiful face was a death's head mask. The mouth excoriated to the quick, the limbs wasted, and the skin was covered with unsightly blemishes. She would talk to no one and confided to no one the fear and despair she must have felt. She sent everyone away with bitter words. Vera wrote to John when she saw her sister failing so rapidly, but he never wrote back, and to date, no one had seen or heard from him. When it became clear that Becky will not come out of hospital alive, the family met, and after much discussion, it was decided that it would be least disruptive for the children if they went to live with the 2 doctors. It was a show of confidence that touched Wandia deeply. As it later transpired, however, all they really needed was a home, for their mother had not only a hefty insurance, but left so large an estate that everyone was amazed. She had a string of mansionettes, 2 bungalows in Spring Valley, and actually owned a block of offices and shops in Westlands. What is more, her affairs were in spick and span order, with everything clearly documented and legally tied up, and her debts were easily cleared by the sale of one of her houses. She had appointed a firm of trustees to run her affairs on behalf of her children, and for their benefit, her sister Vera had been appointed guardian of the children and was allowed to choose which family member they would live with. This family member would draw money from the estate in amounts deemed sufficient to provide comfortably for the children. Her will clarified these issues and then went on to state, "My sister Vera and I have had differences, but I have no doubt that she would have made an excellent mother, much better than I ever was. The children love her, so it is with confidence that I leave every aspect of their care in her capable hands, with the assistance of whichever family members she chooses, for I appreciate that the nature of her calling may not allow her to establish her own home. I want her to know that I love my children, though my way of expressing it may not have satisfied her. I expressed it by making sure they will never lack in the things I believe in. It is true that money cannot buy happiness, or I would have been happy, but it can buy pretty well everything else. Okay, it cannot buy life either, for I am dying and will die in the slowest, most painful way possible, but I am not sorry for the way I have lived, for I found out, however late, that everything has a price. This is the price of living the way I have lived. So be it. I will pay it." Vera wept afresh when the will was read out. What could make anyone so bitter? They had had good, loving parents, and all her brothers and her other sister were happy, warm-hearted people with ordinary faults, but not with such bitterness, the bitterness of girl. And that in someone so beautiful? She had been only 33, and until the last 6 months of her illness, she had still been the loveliest person Vera had ever seen. Vera was only too glad to put the children in Wandia's capable hands, and the results were soon visible. Auro, suddenly faced with a household consisting of 4 children, grew up in a hurry. He hit it off, especially with little Johnny, who had never really had a good father figure to relate to. The men of the house, consisting of Auro, Johnny and Daniel, as soon as he could walk, were often seen playing ball in the playground down below. Daniel was rarely off his bum, but the happy smile never left his face. He was not the brightest child alive. Those honors went to Lisa and Johnny when he finally came out of his shell. He was not even the most gifted. That honor went to Alicia, out of whose hands beautiful things and beautiful music were already being created, apparently quite effortlessly, and who sang like a bird. No, Daniel was none of these things, but no one could be unhappy in the presence of such a thoroughgoing happiness and sheer joy of living. His mother loved him almost desperately, but today her keen eyes watched him frantically, and they brimmed over with tears, and she screamed silently at a God she did not believe in. Daniel had leukemia. It had started with 2 episodes of nose bleeding, quite severe. Then he wouldn't brush his teeth, and on examining his mouth, his mother found that his gums were also soggy and bleeding. She summoned the maid. "Does this child ever eat the mid-morning snack of fruits I told you to be giving him?" asked Wandia in her bad Swahili. "Ndiyo, mama," answered the maid in her beautiful coastal accent Swahili with a long-drawn lilt on the vowels. On normal days, this contrast was cause for laughter, but this was not a normal day. Wandia, alarmed, lifted the heavy boy in her arms and laid him out on the sofa. She examined his neck, and there were many little and not so little lumps on it. She found some more in his armpit and his groin. On feeling his tummy, she found that the spleen was quite enlarged. She stood up trembling. "What is it, mommy?" asked Daniel in his slow, husky way. "Nothing, baby. Nothing. You don't have to brush your teeth. You can do it tomorrow when you feel better." "Okay," he answered, smiling. Brushing had become rather uncomfortable lately. When Auro finally got home, Wandia was beside herself. She was in early pregnancy, and he sensed immediately that something was wrong from the unfriendly greeting he received. "Where the hell have you been?" He was a resident in surgery, and that meant he kept all manner of weird hours. She knew it and rarely ever commented on it. She was usually too busy with her own studies anyway to worry overmuch. "Oh, I decided to pop into the library to read a little. You know, it is impossible to read in this house." "Well, I do it frequently enough. We have children and we cannot just forget they need us." Okay, maybe I have a slow brain or something. I am sorry. And why are you so combative anyway? Why was she fighting? She didn't know, except that she was beside herself with worry. I think Daniel has leukemia," she said, her lips trembling. Oh, it didn't occur to him to doubt her. Her prowess as a clinician was well known. He went on trying to console her. "But there are leukemias and leukemias." It was true. Some forms of leukemia were deadly, while others were comparatively easy to treat and even cure. Blood cancer was a common occurrence in people with Down syndrome. It was just that they had thought that disaster could not strike twice. "Are you telling me?" she asked bitterly. Please, honey. Don't honey me. Go to hell." She turned on her heel and went to bed. Auro ate his dinner alone, then went to look at his sleeping son. He felt the flesh around his child's neck and armpits and found the telltale little lumps. He stood staring at the sleeping face for a long time, then went back to the sitting room and called his sister Vera. He had to wait for a long time before someone answered the phone. Hello, Vera, would you come over tomorrow? Wandia is in a rather bad way and she's in early pregnancy. She kind of trusts you, And what is wrong? Asked Vera, alarmed. He felt like weeping. We suspect that Daniel has blood cancer. Cancer? He's only a baby. This particular form tends to dog people with Down syndrome and it can occur at any age. Maybe it is something else. I hope so, answered the beleaguered father without much hope. Don't worry too much, please. I will come. Thanks, sis. He hung up. The next day, the two took their son to the most eminent specialist on blood diseases in the country. Vera came along. Wandia remained pointedly silent. The specialist listened to their story, examined the child and ordered immediate admission. Daniel took it all in good grace until the man with the needles came to draw blood. He wept pitiably. He had known nothing but love and comfort in all his short life. Had he not tried to be a good boy? Why was the man poking at his hands with sharp needles? He turned his slanted, tearful eyes to his mother, and she staggered out of the room with Vera's arm around her shoulder. I think you should return later, Dr. Sigo, suggested the sister in charge. She's right, my dear. Let's go home. His daddy can stay with him until they have finished with him. Vera guided Wandia out of the hospital into the bright sun. When they were in the car, Wandia turned suddenly and asked Vera. Where is God? A question as old as man sojourn on this earth. Here with us, in this terrible situation? Have no doubt. Then ask him for the life of my son. I already have, answered Vera simply. A couple of days later, it was confirmed that Daniel indeed had leukemia, but it was not the most aggressive form and there was even possibility of a cure. On hearing that, Wandia abandoned her agnostic stance and went to church, a place whose doors she had not darkened since her wedding day and to which only Aoro, out of a sense of his strong religious inheritance rather than any clear belief, had hitherto gone with the children. Wandia went there specifically to bargain with this strange and terrifying God, which was the only concept she had heard of him since the day she had watched her father's body being lowered into the gaping red hole. God, I know you and I have not been great friends, but I have tried not to harm anyone and I have served many others. This is my son who was born maimed but whom I love dearly. It is said you are love. If that is true, then you should understand how much I love him. Please let my son be cured and from now onward, I shall regularly go to church and see to it that all the 4 children know you. She could think of nothing else to say, but she stayed there kneeling for a very long time, head bowed before the tabernacle. Even she did not understand the significance of this act, for her knowledge of religion was almost non-existent.